Welcome back, casters, to episode 2 of MetaZoo News, the podcast. This week, we are diving into the latest MetaZoo Monday recap, and then moving into a community roundup of standout videos, alternate format ideas, and yes, a bit of controversy at the end. But first, we're going to take a look at the MetaZoo Monday recap from September the 8th, 2025. Secret Shadows revealed as the next dark set. That is the big headline coming out of MetaZoo Monday. Overall, it was a pretty quiet MetaZoo Monday, with the exception of the giant news that Secret Shadows is the new name. I personally had it pegged as Shifting Shadows, so I was halfway right. But Secret Shadows sounds great. Really looking forward to seeing what GQL and MetaZoo produce. With that Bunnyman art already, I mean, it is looking fantastic. A poncho production, I believe. I don't have it right in front of me. But we're going to get into this in the Community Roundup portion. But shout out to Bunnyman Productions, who made a great video breaking down the card's playability and taking a look at some of the artwork in the background for some Easter eggs. And as Anonymous Bob pointed out in MetaZoo Monday, they are going to release, hopefully soon, the full art of the Bunnyman, as there are some nice Easter eggs hidden inside. So we have that to look forward to whenever they decide to drop it. I'm sure it will be featured in the podcast, if not another Bunnyman video. So be on the lookout there, and give Bunnyman Productions a subscription if you haven't already on YouTube. Follow them on IG. We'll get to that in the Community Roundup as well, or I guess we'll revisit it as well. Let's see. Let me look at my notes. The other thing about spoilers here is that spoiler season, community spoiler season, begins near the end of the month. At least Bob says that they are going to be reaching out to content creators by the end of the month. So I would bank on seeing some community releases here in October. I'm sure that will be the month of community spoilers. So keep an eye out. Maybe MetaZoo News will be featured once again for another spoiler. Might have to do a full recording, video recording again. If you haven't checked out our first spoiler, it took a while to put together, so go give it a look if you haven't. But hopefully we get to do another one, but no big deal if not. But I do love the idea of having the community be the ones to spoil it. Really gets everyone involved and allows everyone to have their moment in the spotlight. Really, of course, helps build the community around MetaZoo, so big fan of that. 173 cards in the new set, so that is definitely a big departure from the 200 plus card sets that we have seen. Of course, those 173 cards do not include alt arts, legend rares, or hidden rares, or maybe even another rarity that they haven't announced. But it would surprise me if they came out with something other than like just their normal slate that they've done since Torrential Tides now. It would just be surprising to add more rarity tiers so quickly, especially when legend rares were introduced to just help the opening experience be more enjoyable and fulfilling. I think that adding more rarity tiers at this point, just my opinion, is a little convoluted. So hopefully that's not the case, but regardless, 173 cards in the new set, so a smaller, more focused set this time around. Before we move on to a different topic, there is no update on big box access, which retailers we're going into and what the timeline is. No update on that, and no update on TCG Player. Nothing so far, at least. Though TCG Player did reply to my email and said that they would make a note. They said that they would pass it along to their appropriate team to take a look at. Hopefully some of you are able to send in some emails as well. That'd be very helpful if a lot of people in the community did it all at once. So consider doing that if you haven't already. But that is it for Secret Shadows, at least the information that we got from MetaZoo Monday. Next up, we're going to talk about some convention updates. In MetaZoo Monday, it was announced that MetaZoo will not be at the New York Comic-Con this year. Anonymous Bob explained, quote, "We just launched on March 28th. We need to build up to NYCC. We thought a lot about it," end quote. Instead, all the focus is on the Atlanta Collecticon this weekend, which we saw a promo for. But before we get to that promo, it took a lot of people by surprise that MetaZoo would not be at NYCC this year. It goes without saying that MetaZoo has had a interesting presence, to say the least, at NYCC in the past. So definitely surprising for a lot of people, multiple people, 2 or 3, 4, 5 people in MetaZoo Monday expressed some shock, I guess, that they wouldn't be there. But as Bob said, you need to build up to that kind of thing. It would be great to get a bunch of eyes on new MetaZoo. The thing is, we are already getting a bunch of new eyes on new MetaZoo, and that's through all these Collecticons that have been going on and are going on this upcoming weekend as well. I think that the strategy, questionable. I mean, people can agree, disagree. I understand where they're coming from here. They want to build up the brand first, and you could say, well, the IP's already there. People already know the IP. True, but people don't know this IP. They don't know what GameCubator Labs and M2 have done with it. They certainly don't know the game. So, do I personally wish they'd be at New York Comic Con this year? Yes. Would I go? Hell yes. I would definitely go. I think it would be really cool. But, with a new company that's just trying to find its footing in the TCG space, I understand why they'd be hesitant about NYCC. A bit disappointing, but understandable. Hopefully the Collecticon appearances will provide similar support for MetaZoo and give them some confidence, to say the least, to go and do some of these larger conventions. So, back to Atlanta Collecticon this weekend. Jet Yates will be in attendance, signing and doodling cards. Anonymous Bob encouraged collectors to bring their Blossom Rares if they have them. I'm not sure very many people do, but I would almost guarantee that at least one person is going to bring the Blossom Rare set for Jet to sign, and I guarantee we will see that plastered all over the MetaZoo Games Instagram. I'm sure MetaZoo News will share it as well. So looking forward to seeing Jet, maybe even doodling on some of those Blossom Rares. But regardless, that will be at Atlanta this weekend. They also released a promo for Collecticon featuring the Charman, I think. I also, unprepared, don't have that pulled up in front of me either. But from what I recall, it looked to have a graffiti aesthetic, which looked awesome, and even had some Mothman stuff off to the side. So that was a very cool art style. Really enjoyed how that looks, and it's a shame that I won't be going to Atlanta because I really want one of those. So, any of you going to Atlanta, let me know. I'd love to get one of those promos. But yeah, so Atlanta's this weekend. Spoiler for it's been revealed. Jet will be there. It'll be a good time. If you haven't been to a Collecticon with the new MetaZoo before, at least, you're going to have a great time. Highly encourage people to go out and give it a shot. You get these free prizes just for going up and spinning the wheel. No cost, no strings attached. Get some learn to plays out of the way. Buy some product. So always a bunch of fun at the booth. Definitely stop by if you have an opportunity. Next up, we have some discussion on alt art boxes and the economics behind them, at least one portion of it. So the Dark Set alt art box has not yet been announced. It's hard to speculate on who might get that assignment. And of course, MetaZoo is filled with very talented artists, so there's no real wrong answer, but I certainly hope it's one of the OG artists like they have been doing. I would personally, I would love to see a Kelsey box. I think that would be sick. The other artist that I would really like to see is Kate Becker. I think she would make a fantastic box, alt art box. But like I said, no artist would be a bad choice. I know my wife would really like to see Shab have his own box, and I think that'd be great too. Like I said, no wrong answers there. But those details have not yet been made public. Now, what was a little bit of news here was that at least one or two community members brought up that the alt art boxes may have a negative effect in that stores buy cases of MetaZoo to find this alt art box, and they just dump all the other boxes for cheap because they're already making a solid amount of money just selling that one alt art box. So they don't care, obviously, about the MetaZoo ecosystem in that sense. They just are out to get the alt art box, which understandable. They put it in there for a reason, right? To get people to buy them. But the unintended side effect there is lowering prices across the board of booster boxes, where it becomes a race to the bottom, especially on online resellers, sellers like eBay and whatnot, platforms like that. Definitely a race to the bottom. Whoever can produce the cheapest box wins. So I understand that's a feature of capitalism and everything, but at the same time, as sellers, I'm sure you would want to maintain a solid price line that isn't just dipping into, distributor cost kind of stuff. I mean, to see boxes go for less than what you would pay like Cardio or any of the other big distributors, that's just not good, to put it lightly. But not to say that there's like alarm bell sounding or anything there. That's just the nature of the secondary market for a game that is brand new. So that is just my take on it, at least. But the news portion of this is that M2/GQL have taken feedback regarding alt art boxes and integrating alternate chase formats or options, and are actively developing something new for chases in that respect. So there wasn't any other information from that part. I mean, that was just a really short sentence that Anonymous Bob put out there that wasn't really expanded upon. Apologies for the iMessage noises. But regardless, there wasn't a lot put out there about it. There wasn't a follow-up question or anything like that posed. But some community members speculated things like maybe serialized cards or something similar to that. And obviously, MetaZoo's already talked about serialized cards. They're putting them in organized play packs, which I think they should keep them that way. That encourages organized play. I understand why they might want to have serialized cards just in general. Obviously, that's a big draw. People are going to go out of their way to buy them. But I think they probably should just stay in the OP packs. Again, these are all my opinions. You're listening to the MetaZoo News Podcast. So lots of opinions here and a little bit of news, just like any podcast, right? Okay. Next up, we have some interesting alt play format ideas. TMX, shout out to TMX Comics, mentioned that there will be a tournament on September 20th in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where competitors will rip 10 packs and then build a deck based on what they got out of those packs, which drew some positive reactions from the chat, and Bob himself wanted to get the details and then be there to see it live. So that is exciting. I wish I lived in Pennsylvania just for the MetaZoo aspect, because if you take a look on Instagram at a minimum, and I think on YouTube as well, the Pennsylvania MetaZoo, group, I think, they have accounts on Instagram and on YouTube. They put out a bunch of content and are one of the most active areas currently in New MetaZoo outside of Virginia, which I think might be the number one in-person play state at the moment. But a very intriguing idea. I think out of 10 packs, you may need like some supplemental cards or something like that to add to make a functional deck. But regardless, I think that's a really fun idea. For those of you that weren't at the first Flex Deck tournament, that's pretty much the style that we had. We of course had Flex Decks. You get 3 additional packs along with that. Rip your packs, and of course you can add anything that you get from your packs to your Flex Deck. That was a lot of fun. I actually pulled Archive from my 3 packs, so I replaced my caster with Archive and had one very fun deck for the Flex Deck tournament. But those alt play formats I think are really cool. Personally, I have a friend group of like 3. So like 3 total people is like my close friend group from college and high school. Same guys, good guys. Shout out to Jake and Grant. So I have a group of 3 here. So playing MetaZoo always leaves someone out. So what I would like to see happen is, and I know this is like such a niche thing, but like a 3-player free-for-all format, that would be cool. Like if you were to, I'm not sure how you would set it up with the lanes. You might have like a common, like a shared lane or something like that. Hard to say, but I think that thinking about a 3-player free-for-all format where you could, play in any one person's lane at a time, I think that'd be cool. I haven't thought a lot about it, obviously, but integrating something like that, or even a 2v2 team play, I think would be cool. Even if you set up like 8 lanes, like together in one game, and had like player 1 from team 1 plays, then player 1 from team 2 plays, then player 2 from team 1 plays, so on and so forth, just sort of going back and forth like that. I think that would be cool. You could have some time to strategize with your partner. There's not necessarily like turn timers right now, but if you had like a partner-based event, you might have turn-based timers. You might have like a certain amount of prep time that you could like pause, for example, go talk strategy with some deceivious whispers with your partner, return to the game, execute your strategy, stuff like that. I think would be fun just to get more people involved, and I think that you would see some pretty cool MetaZoo teams emerge from that if you could play like 2v2. I think that'd be really fun. I would be interested to see what you all think a new MetaZoo format might look like that might either involve more people or have something like TMX's idea of rip 10 packs and build a deck. Maybe an aura draft, rip a booster box amongst several people, draft, I don't know, either mono deck or 2 different color auras, something like that, depending on how many people. I don't know. It would just be cool to have different formats be easily accessible, have rules for them, be fleshed out. I think that would make for a really entertaining MetaZoo experience for more experienced people. But that's just my ideas here for some alt play formats. I think it can't hurt to think about them. It's fun talking about them. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to hit me up on Instagram. I would love to integrate any of your ideas into the podcast. All right, casters, next up we have the Spellbook Spotlight segment, a brand new segment that will be featuring myself and Mrs. MZN, where we will take a look at some cards that caught our eye and talk about them, break them down. So first up, we have the one, the only, Mrs. MZN.
Hey there, casters. This is Mrs. MZN here. One of my favorite cryptids of all time, if not my favorite cryptid, is Lady Luck. Not only do I think she has really cool powers, but also the artwork for her is exceptional. Specifically, the card that is my favorite and was my chase for such a long time. Shoutouts to Mario for hooking it up. But the base set alt art by Issa or ISSA has such beautiful geometric texture. It's one of those where as soon as you see it, you just think so much quality and so much work has gone into the creation of the card. Now, the geometric texture to me also kind of reminds me of a spade, so very on brand with what Lady Luck stands for. One thing that particularly stands out is actually the effect of Lady Luck, which is roll of the dice. On play, your opponent gains 5 MP. At the end of the next round, you win the game. If Lady Luck is removed from play, this ability no longer applies. So, coming from a strategic standpoint, 5 MP to your opponent probably pushes them super close to winning since she costs 10 to play. And so you're pretty much at the end of the game with all 10 auras used on her. But the roll of the dice is that if she lasts to the next round, you win automatically. What a fantastic move and effect that she has. Not only is the art pretty, but I think her effect is one of a kind. And that's the spotlight I have for you today.
And for me, my card that I chose is Pele, which is from Torrential Tides, drawn by John Gagney. Shout out to John. It is a 7 influence, 7 cost card, which features the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes, Pele, right in the middle, illustrated with these bright and vibrant blues and reds and oranges. It just pops immediately, especially the sky in the background, which on the card is drawn a light blue, but when you look at it on the silver background, everything around it just absolutely pops right off of the cardboard. It looks beautiful, and as someone who spoiled Surtur from Torrential Tides, this card speaks to me, because the effect is tap 1 fire aura, sacrifice a creature with 4 or less influence, and gain MP equal to the influence of that creature. It is another way where you can sacrifice something to get MP from it, just like Surtur. So I really like Pele. It stood out to me. Flipping through my binder, this just pops right out of the page. So definitely a card that I appreciate a lot, both for its visuals and its gameplay mechanics. And that, folks, is the end of our brand new segment, Spellbook Spotlight. All right, casters, we are now in our Community Roundup segment. So at the very onset, I want to acknowledge something a listener wrote in about. And I think it's worth addressing because it's a conversation happening in the community. They raised 2 big points. First, how do we know rare staff cards are actually destroyed and not leaking out later? And second, why is it so hard to get PSA 10s on new MetaZoo cards? Both are fair questions, and both get at deeper issues of trust and quality in the TCG world. Let's start with staff cards and promos. Specifically the Collecticon promos. So in any trading card game, there's always going to be some level of mystery about what happens behind the scenes. Whether that's the destruction of extras, warehouse storage, how many actually make it into circulation, things like that. The company has said that the intent is for these cards to remain tightly controlled, and the fact that they emphasize not creating functional exclusivity supports that philosophy. Could mistakes or leaks ever happen? Sure. That risk exists in any TCG. But to me, the important part is that the conversation itself reflects how much value players place on the integrity of rarity. People only ask these tough questions because they want the game to thrive long term, and that passion for transparency is a healthy sign of engagement. So my main answer here for the staff cards is I don't think that they're going to, live stream the putting staff cards in like a fire or something like that. But I think that the team at GQL, we should give them some semblance of trust here. And the reason being is that people like Richard Garfield and Rick Ahrens, the creators of Magic the Gathering, former executive vice president of the Pokemon Company, do you think these are grifters? Like, really, do you think these people are out to do some money grab? Because they have billions of dollars, okay? They're not just a little rich. They are very rich, and they do not need any kind of money grab type situation here where they dole out some staff cards to their friends or slowly leak them online or anything like that. There is no incentive like there was in old MetaZoo to do stuff like that. That's just my take on it. So I think that we should give them some semblance of trust here and assume that they are, in fact, going to destroy these cards. And I think what came up before was just like a question of what's the most cost-effective way to destroy a large amount of cards at once. Is it actually tossing them in a fire? Is it cutting them in half? Is it putting a hole punch in them? What is it? Each of these things has its cost, and for a company looking to minimize expenses, everything starts to have a value and a number tied with it. So that's just something to think on. But that's my take on that. Now, on to grading. Anyone who has sent cards to PSA knows the frustration. Fresh from a pack, straight into a sleeve, and you still end up with a 9 instead of a 10. Obviously, that stings. I've been on the receiving end of that many times, especially if you're chasing a Grail card. That's rough. But there's another way to look at it. 10s are supposed to be rare. They're meant to represent the absolute top standard of production and handling. In MetaZoo's case, it might feel like the curve is a little harsher, but that also means when a 10 does pop, it's truly special. And I get that feels unfair to open a brand new card that looks perfect and still see it grade a 9. But the silver lining is that it keeps the chase alive and elevates the prestige of gem mint copies. Over time, as production matures, we might see consistency improve, and I think collectors pushing for that higher standard is a part of what drives progress. So, my bottom line, both of these concerns, staff card transparency and PSA grading standards, come from the same place. They come from people caring about fairness, quality, and trust. And the fact that the MetaZoo community is vocal about those things shows that it's not a passive audience. It's a group of collectors and players who want the game to succeed and to hold it to a high standard. And in my book, that's a good sign of the future of the game. One last thing that I'd like to point out for those PSA things. If we are comparing them to other TCGs like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, just remember that the production numbers are so different. They're worlds apart. So a huge amount of Pokemon cards are made that necessitates, logically, an increase in the amount of 10s that get graded just because of the sheer volume of it. So if you don't look at it as a direct comparison to things like Pokemon or other mainstream TCGs that print thousands and thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of cards, or packs rather, I think that MetaZoo probably is right on track. But that's not to say that concerns aren't valid. But that's my take on those two issues. And if you want to write in to let your opinions be known, or if you want me to discuss a certain topic, please reach out on Instagram. That would be at MetaZoo.news on IG. Or you can reach out to meta.shab on IG. That would be my account. Either way, I would be happy to feature what you have to say, even if you have criticism levied at the company. I think if it's fair criticism, it's worthy to talk about. So, with that being said, we are going to shift over to what's happening in the community content space this week. A lot of creators have been putting out some really fun and creative MetaZoo videos. Everything from lore dives to mail days to spooky pack rips, which we will get to. Let's take a look. The first up, though, we're going to take a look at Zeles. He switched gears from his usual pack openings and dropped a very interesting video where he explored the lore behind some cryptids. So he covered, apologies if I mispronounce things, he covered Zen, which beings of smokeless fire from Arabian mythology, basically like shapeshifters with free will. He dug into the Mountain Boomer, a Texas lizard cryptid said to be 5 to 6 feet tall and make booming sounds in the woods. Then there's Baku, a Japanese chimera-like dream eater that devours nightmares. Spooky. He even touched on the Gumbaroo, one of Ben's favorites, Ben MetaZoo, a lumberjack legend with rubbery bulletproof skin that supposedly explodes if it's set on fire. And he wrapped up with Tatsu, the Japanese water dragons, seen as benevolent guardians of rivers and lakes. A fun little video that gives you some background on some cryptids that you might see in MetaZoo. So, highly recommend giving that a watch. It was a cool change of pace. And of course, it goes to show that MetaZoo is more than just cardboard. It's the very essence of it is tapping into those cryptids, the stories, the legends and myths that are passed down from generation to generation. So I think it's great anytime a content creator, touches on those. And he ended by asking viewers what cryptids they would like him to cover next, so we may see this turn into an ongoing series if we are lucky. Next up, DPD19. He had a TMX Mail Day and custom artwork video. Quick but fun. DBD reached out to TMX to sign his creator card, and in return, he sent TMX a signed card, which was the one he originally revealed, Charman, I believe. But TMX did not stop there. He surprised DPD with a custom piece of artwork, DPD himself drawn onto a Reaper's Crown card. DPD joked about having a giraffe neck in the card, but said that the final art actually turned out great, more like Emerald with no neck at all. He was clearly pumped about it and added the piece to his signed binder, which was a nice reminder of the creative exchanges that happened between two community members, which is obviously a little bit of fun, and you get DPD's personality thrown into the mix, and DPD is hilarious. Love watching his videos. Great guy. Worked at Collecticon as well. I think New Jersey Collecticon DPD worked. So that was a fun little video. And then moving right along, we have another big drop. Was the first episode of the Jackalope Podcast. That was a venture between Ben and Anonymous Bob. It was a casual, free-flowing conversation covering cryptids, horror movies, and a bunch of spooky ghost stories as well. They talked about their taste in horror, preferring psychological thrillers like The Thing. Shout out to The Thing. One of the first horror movies I ever watched. Very scary, spooky scary. Or 1408 over gory stuff like Hostel. When it comes to favorite cryptids, Ben went straight to Bigfoot, calling it the most outlandish but also the most plausible. Mark leaned toward the Loch Ness Monster, talking about the mysteries of the ocean and even the possibility of aliens hiding in the deep. Ben also shared some ghost stories from his Navy days aboard the USS Nimitz, tales of footsteps, missing officers, and ship lore passed down from crew to crew. They also touched on collecting, saying they rather display and play with their figures and slabs than keep everything sealed. I agree with that one 100%. And they even dipped into tabletop gaming with some talk about D&D campaigns, and I am no stranger to D&D or campaigns. I have run many a campaign and have participated in many more as a player. So shout out to all my D&D fans out there. And they wrapped up with a promo for JackalopeClub.com, 10% off with the code podcast, and teased giveaways and more episodes to come. For the very first episode, I thought it was really fun. I thoroughly enjoy listening to those two people talk. And they're really fun to hang out with in person too. So shout out to both of them, Anonymous Bob and Ben MetaZoo. Another thing we're going to touch on here next is just to revisit that Bunnyman video that we teased in the beginning. Bunnyman Productions, shout out to him. A great guy on IG and YouTube that you should absolutely subscribe to if you haven't already. Bunnyman Productions puts out a lot of gameplay vids and deck building videos, and in this one he discussed briefly that Bunnyman promo, the playability of it, and even looked a little bit deeper into the background of the pictures there in the Bunnyman art, noting Adam Ackler can be seen along with a mystery SB or JB initials. It is unclear what those are, but when we do see the full art version of this, needless to say, we will get some answers. And I think there are more than one little Easter eggs in there. So definitely something to look out for on the horizon. Last up, we have MetaZooManiac. Shout out to MetaZooManiac and MetaZooManiac's dad. Great guy. He and I worked together to help produce the Instagram version of her spoiler of the Beast of Churubusco, something like that. Anyway, she's great. We love MetaZooManiac over here at MetaZoo News. But definitely the most atmospheric video of them all came from MetaZooManiac. She leaned into the spooky theme of Nightfall by ripping a box during a lunar eclipse in what looked to be like a dimly lit cabin with some great theming around it. The room was dark, lit only by candles, which gave everything a weird seance-like vibe, or maybe a Lost in the Woods vibe. And the box itself turned out to be a straight heater. Pulled both the Mothman and the Wendigo, two big chase cards from Nightfall, along with Dark Watchers, which is one of my personal favorites, just of all time in MetaZoo art. Nightfall, Dark Watchers, A1. But the combination of the setting, the timing with the eclipse, the amazing pulls, just made it feel awesome to watch. So it was definitely an experience. And that, my friends, is really the magic of MetaZoo. The community that ties the game to real-world mysticism and folklore, making cards come alive in ways that you don't see in other TCGs. So, with that, just to round everything up here, we have Zeles diving into cryptid lore, DPD and TMX trading creative art pieces, the Jackalope Club launching their first podcast, Bunnyman Productions breaking down the latest promos, and MetaZooManiac turning a Nightfall rip into a candlelit eclipse ritual. Our community is finding so many unique ways to keep MetaZoo fun and alive, and that is your Community Roundup for this week. And as promised, a little bit of controversy to end the recording off on. So I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about this situation, so just putting that out there. But I am intimately familiar with some of what is going to be talked about. But at the end of MetaZoo Monday, a controversy struck when MetaZoo Menace was timed out from the Discord for, a week or something like that. I'm not going to get into, reasons why or speculate on anything like that. I think it's irresponsible to. I'm not going to do that. But he did drop a video about it that drew over 60 comments. And MetaZoo Menace, by the way, I know people have a lot of opinions about him. I do not hold any negative opinions about MetaZoo Menace. I think that, not everyone is going to be, 100% positive all the time about things. So, look, I don't have anything against Menace. Menace made a cool little music video for the Magic is Real song that we put out. So he's never done anything to me or anything like that. But and I'm not criticizing the content of his video. Not gonna even go there. But just take a look at the comments, and this is not MetaZoo Menace's fault, but take a look at the comments, and you will see just a host of, I think like all the old MetaZoo heads, all the new MetaZoo haters just like came out of the woodwork on this one and just went wild. Just talking to themselves, really. But I just want to point out here that these people have repeated familiar false claims many times. The most ridiculous one, the so-called Charlie's Angels, really, inflate prices, that they buy their own stuff or each other's cards. That is completely baseless. There's literally, it starts with rumor has it. Who started the rumor? You? I mean, all of this is completely baseless and nonsense. And in reality, I don't know these people personally, but just from how they speak online, it seems like the only thing that gives them any kind of joy in life is to hate on new MetaZoo, call it a cash grab and all this nonsense. When the biggest competitor, of course, has finished their second Kickstarter. I mean, and you call MetaZoo a cash grab. Anyway, I don't want to get into that either. But regardless, to say that they inflate prices, to say that no one is buying or playing MetaZoo, or that the most ridiculous one, that Kansas City Collecticon was dead. Okay. The reality is very different. Sales are happening, even if you personally do not see the sales happening. The number one thing that I look at, obviously, you can look at eBay sales, sure. You can look at Whatnot sales, yeah. But the one metric that you're not looking at that makes tens of thousands of dollars each weekend is selling product at Collecticon. Especially after people get a taste of the Learn to Play, we get a huge amount of brand new people, brand new to the game, never have even heard of it before, go and buy a booster box, or go and buy a magazine, or go and buy a flex deck after having fun playing the game at Collecticon. I just want to say, I literally worked at the Kansas City Collecticon. So I know for a fact that it was not dead. That booth had a constant line for the spin wheel. For our 1 p.m. spin wheel, we literally had a line around the booth that snaked around the booth. And then for Learn to Plays, we had a wait list for people. We literally had to turn people away and say, right now, all of our tables are full, but come back, take a walk around the convention, come back in 10, 15 minutes, and we'll see if we can match you up with somebody. It was a constant stream of people, a constant stream of sales, and to insinuate that it was dead is just wrong. It's just wrong. And if that person was actually there, they're just a straight up liar, doing it just to stoke the flames. So I think that's ridiculous, just in my personal opinion. It just shows that a small but loud group thrives on negativity, but it doesn't reflect the actual state of the game. And again, because you don't see people playing it, doesn't mean that people aren't playing it. Because you don't see people buying it, doesn't mean people aren't buying it. It's ridiculous to take small examples and extrapolate these huge conclusions out of them based on pure conjecture and honestly just their personal fantasy of seeing the new MetaZoo die, because they were left out of it. Let's just be real. They were left out of new MetaZoo. And the fact that it's run like an actual company with real business people at the helm upsets people, because they don't get their own personal kickbacks. They don't get anything like the old MetaZoo was, where it was the old boys club at the top, where friends ran things, made terrible financial decisions, effectively rug swept a bunch of us. And yet you see people in the comments saying, oh, I wish Mike was back. Don't you all miss Mike? Are you crazy? Listen to yourself. Do you miss Mike? Listen to yourself. We have a legit company running this game now, and you're asking if people are missing Mike. Really? Anyway, that is my rant, my controversy rant at the end. You don't have to agree with it. I totally respect your opinion if you don't agree with it. If you're one of the haters, you have the freedom of speech. So feel free to keep talking your nonsense. But for everyone else out there that reads that kind of stuff, I just want to let you know that the reality of what makes MetaZoo so special is that it's alive. It lives in the community. It thrives on new eyes. Because everyone's heard of some cryptid story some way, somehow. Whether it be your family passing down something, or maybe you move to a new area and your new neighbors talk about their sightings of things like maybe the Chupacabra, maybe even the Houston Batman. Anyone? MetaZoo, please make the Houston Batman into the dark side. Thank you. But anyway, that's it for the MetaZoo News Podcast, Episode 2. This is Shab, also known as Mr. MCN, signing off. And we will see you next time. Casters, sayonara.